Hey everybody, what's up? It's Steve here, and at the moment I am right in the middle of trying to get this glass mounted into the back of this Camaro. However, if you watched last week's video, I did say that I had all of the footage filmed for the rear bumper tuck and that I still needed to put that together and hopefully get that out. So without further ado, I'm going to play that footage, and it pretty much starts off with me getting set up on the rear of the bumpers. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoy what I put together, but before I do let you go, I want to welcome you into the shop, and as always, hey, thanks for checking the channel out, and hopefully you enjoy the content that I've put together on this rear bumper. So while you guys are watching that, I'm going to basically, for the most part, I'm going to jump back in on this glass, and hopefully today I can get this bed done. So we'll see you guys after it. Now that I'm set up on the back end of the car, I went ahead and this is the bumper that was on the car when it actually came into the shop. Now, I went ahead, I've stripped the rest of the brackets off. There's a bracket here and a bracket here on both sides. I've pulled those off, and at the moment, the only thing that I have holding this on is the center bracket. So the problem that I run into right now, or what I am seeing, is this is a bumper it's an aftermarket bumper that was made in Taiwan, and the steel is very, very thin. So I have another old original bumper here that it's much heavier, and I'm not too sure that I don't go ahead and strip this thing down and actually use this bumper instead. The reason is just the fact that this bumper is going to be a little bit heavier. Granted, when you get a car to this point, these are basically just styling cues. They're not really going to be that great for an impact. So anyway, I think I'm going to tear this bumper down. I'm going to take the brackets off this bumper, and then I'm going to get it set up on here, and we'll figure out how far that we've got to push this thing into the car. Now that I have this original bumper bolted on, I took all the brackets off and scraped one bumper sticker off. I've left this one on because I thought this one was kind of neat. This is actually, looks to be a parking pass for Rogers State College. It's got the number on it. I imagine if a person wanted to research, you might be able to find out who actually owned this, which would have been kind of cool. They drove a first-gen Camaro to school. So anyway, not to get sidetracked, but anyway, I've got this thing bolted in, and the gap from the center to here actually looks pretty good from across the back of this tail panel, but I've got a lot more gap here, so I'm going to probably end up bending the bumper just a little bit in the center. But all in all, I might only take this thing in towards the body about 1/4 of an inch here. So I think that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to try to get the bumper to take the shape of the tail light panel. And then once I'm done with that, then I think I'm going to end up modifying this center bracket to kind of hold everything into place. So that's what I think I'll do next. So after a few attempts of trying to use the original bumper, you can see I've got basically the cheap one up here now. What I found out, I was trying to get, there was a larger gap on the driver's side, and I ended up putting a straight edge across the other bumper, and it had a pretty bad bow. If it would have just been a dent or something, it would have been okay, but it was over the span of about a foot. So for the most part, I think since these bumpers, they're not designed to stand a ton of impact, I'm just going to use the bumper that I have. And the first thing I'm going to do is I've got the center bracket bolted in, and I have the bumper bolted here. The first thing we're going to do, we're going to modify this bracket, and basically I'm going to reduce it 3/8 of an inch to get this bumper in closer to the sail panel. So as you can see, it's fairly straight across the tail as far as the fitment up against the taillight panel. And I think that getting that center bracket flushed out will basically set the tone for this thing. So anyway, I think I'm going to get set up. I'm going to take this back apart. We're going to start cutting that bracket and see if I can narrow it. So here's about what I've taken out. Basically, this is another bracket. I basically just cut this section out of the middle of this bracket. So also I've got it clamped together. I've somewhat just checked it off of the straight edge to get the right degree. And as you can see, I have it tacked together, or actually just clamped together. So I'm gonna tack this together real quick, and then I think I'm gonna go try to pre-fit it on the car. So that fit pretty good. As you guys saw, I got the bracket. I kind of basically set it up there and clamped it and checked it 2 or 3 times to get the right angle. It seems to be in pretty good shape. Also, my gap, the distance between the bumper and the taillight panel, looks really good across the back of the car. So I think I've got a couple of bolts here that are holding it on to the bracket. Basically, the bumper's being held on. I'm gonna get rid of all the exposed bolts and the bumper bolts at the end of this anyway. So I'm gonna grab the camera and kind of show you guys the gap, and then I'll show you the other areas that we have to fix. All right, as you can see, looking across, the gap is basically, it looks pretty good actually. So I have to be very careful because this bumper is a little bit lighter weight and I don't want it to distort. So the next thing I'll end up doing is I'll get these brackets, this bracket and that bracket. I'm gonna try to get those nailed down and basically get that set to where the bumper is gonna be straight across these taillight holes. Once that's done, this is the next hideous part. So we'll tackle these after I get I get the bumper secured into place. So we'll tackle those after a while. But anyway, I think that's a good base, a good starting point. So after studying these middle brackets, I guess you could call that, I think since I'm going to be filling up these holes, the additional holes, I only really need this center piece. So this is actually the bracket that came off the car, and as you can see, I have cut this tab off of it. And I'll be filling that hole anyway, so I feel like I don't really need to fight that tab. So I do believe I'm gonna try to take the same approach that I did on the center, and I think I'm just gonna try to take about a 3/8 section out of the center of this bracket. So anyway, I'm gonna give that a try and see if it'll work. So I got all three of these mounts pretty much cut down and have them fitting pretty good. On this side here, I cut the same amount out of this one as I did on the center bracket, and I had to go back in and I had to actually add a little bit of steel here to this one because it was a little bit too much. So I got this one fixed, got it cut in, and I also cut this one down just a little bit. I've got the bumper, everything is tight across the back, and the gap up against the taillight panel looks pretty good. So I think the next step is I'm gonna go ahead and I have to final weld the brackets on the inside of the bumper, and then I'm gonna weld these three brackets to the bumper and hopefully get everything locked in without warping this thing. So that's what I'm gonna do next, and I think after that we'll end up studying this just a little bit. I'll probably end up cutting these corners off of the bumper and then pull these back in. And I have to be very cautious on this, just given the fact that the way these angles are, it could distort and look a little bit odd. So anyway, I'm gonna get set up and I'm gonna finalize these brackets, and we'll continue trying to get this thing pulled into the car. So now is the moment of truth. I've got all the brackets welded completely out. I've got them all welded to the bumper. As you can see, I got rid of the holes and got everything somewhat smoothed out. So looking down it from a line of sight, it doesn't look like it warped, but I don't really know until I get ready to put this thing back up on the car. So I'm gonna do that, and let's cross our fingers and hope that it fits. So far, it looks pretty good. I didn't see any need to film what I just did. It's basically stick it up there and bolt it on. So it's got a pretty good feel. I think I have a little bit of work right here on the taillight panel. That it has a little bit of a slight bow here, but I don't think it's in the bumper. I think it's in this panel, which that's an easy enough fix. But we have a fairly tight gap. It looks pretty good. So I think I'm gonna run with what I have here. And I think the next thing is, I was telling you guys that these ends are gonna be a little bit tricky. So I believe I'm gonna set my laser up. Now I had to move the car back on the lift yesterday because in order to get a good look from the side, as you may or may not be able to see, these posts were in the way of the lift. So I was able to slide it back, and I'm kind of running out of real estate back here. But anyway, I think I'm gonna set the laser up, and I believe I'm gonna try to cut this thing on both sides, pretty much right here where the bumper still has a good flat spot to it. So anyway, I think that is my approach. I'm gonna get these things cut, and we'll see what we can do. I'll probably just work one side at a time out until I get it figured out, and then we'll move over to the other one. So anyway, I'm gonna get set up and I'll see you guys in just a bit. All right, so I don't know if you can see it very well, but I have the laser basically mounted to a 4-foot ladder. All I needed to do is just hold it. And I'm not really trying to get anything level or square with this. All I need is just basically a flat line on this. I figured it'd be better to do this than to try to put a square on this. So anyway, I'm just gonna make me a couple of marks on this thing, and then I'm gonna move over here to the other side. And then that'll give me a good ground zero to start cutting. Now that I got both ends marked, I'm gonna give it a cut. I'm gonna try to cut this thing off while it's still on the car. One reason is, to be fair, I'm tired of bolting this bumper back on and off. So anyway, hopefully I don't cut into the car, so we'll give it a try. So as you saw, the process for this is pretty much just trim some stuff off and then kind of do some more shaping and then refit and then trim some more, but do it in such a slow manner that way you don't take too much material off. So I've got the driver's side looking pretty good. Now, the trick for me on this car, I just wanted to bring the bumpers in a little bit. These things, they stuck off the quarter panel well over an inch. I just wanted to bring these in. So on the next one, Camaro, I guess, I may do something that's a little more drastic and actually cut pockets in here and fit the bumper into these recessed pockets. But on this car, we just want to clean it up a little bit and bring these in. Now, I've got my gap looking pretty good across. It's pretty well uniform all the way across here. So as you can see, maybe not, but I've got a little bit of tape that's, I'll see if I can get on the front side of this, but I want to try to shape, this has got a pretty good sized gap. So I want to try to shape this and kind of draw this in. Now, the trick is do I want to have that flattened or do I want to continue with the roll of this bumper? So anyway, I think I'm going to try to work on some pieces to fit in there and we'll continue this. And once I get this bumper end looking like I want it, then I'm just going to repeat the process on the passenger side. So I'm going to keep going at it. I don't know how much more of this I'm going to film just because you've seen the process. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the cameras down and I'm just going to bury up on this thing and I'm going to get this thing hashed out. And then I'll come back. I'll see you guys hopefully once I get this thing done. One of the things that I didn't capture a lot of on the driver's side was the modification that I made to the underneath of this bumper piece. So as you can see, there is some yellow masking tape on there and I somewhat have it shaped. It's basically, I want it to kind of come out with the curvature and not be flat. So I will trim this piece of tape off and I'll transfer this to some thin metal. And basically I will have to shape this in just a little bit. And more than likely, I may end up doing this in two pieces. So I'm going to capture that. For some reason, I didn't film it on the other side. So I think I will on this side. There is round one. And I left this secondary piece off. One, I've got to reshape this. I actually cut that too small. I'll use a bigger piece. I'll shape this. I'm gonna end up building it to about here. So I'll make this piece, but you can see this is a little bit better visual than just the tape, where basically I've just added this piece of this strip all the way across here and rolled it in. So additionally, I got there was a lot of work on these brackets here trying to get these things cut down, but anyway, that is pretty much what I'm doing, and that's somewhat the process. It's just slow and tedious to try to keep the arc of this. So anyway, I wanted to share that. I didn't capture it on the other side, but I'm going to continue this, finish this one up, and get it tacked onto the bumper. There it is, ladies and gentlemen. The rear bumper is complete. And much like the front bumper, there are several hours into getting it this close. So basically on this one, I didn't want to get super drastic. I just wanted to take out some of the gap where the bumper comes up against these quarter panels. Also across the back taillight panel. Now, as you can see, I still have a little bit of waviness there. That will work out with the taillight panel. But in all, I'm pretty pleased with the way it's turned out. It bolts on fairly easy. I might end up using some stud bolts on the centers, but for the most part, it is done. The rear bumper is done, with the exception of there's some bumperette extensions. I'm going to find out if they want to keep those and run those, and if that's the case, then I'll try to tuck and blend those. But anyway, I'm pretty pleased with the way it's turned out, so I'm going to keep hammering on this thing until it's done. Oh, hey, welcome back, everybody. So hopefully you guys enjoyed watching the footage on that rear bumper tuck as much as I did putting that together. So as I was saying a couple times in these videos, there are a lot of things that is the first time that I have done some of these things on these cars. So as I was getting closer into it, you could kind of see I was kind of getting into a flow and a rhythm. But anyway, there's still plenty of work to be done. But I think for the time being, I'm going to do a little tweaking on this here Mustang. So I want to, as always, I want to thank you guys for stopping by. Thank you, like I said, thank you guys for watching this video. And hopefully, if you haven't already, please hit that subscribe button. Once again, it's greatly appreciated. So I think with that being said, I'm going to say one more thing that I usually say a lot of is I will see you guys on the next one.